Do you like free plugins? Well, if like mine, your hand is in the air, then you're going to want to stick around because in this video, I'm going to show you a free brick wall limiter audio unit extension plugin. Yes, we're going to be taking a look at this one here, the JAX Make Louder plugin, a free brick wall limiter for iOS. So let's go. Hi, my name is Pete and welcome to Studio Live today, where my goal is to help you create, record and release your best music. Now, if like me, you love using GarageBand or other iOS, iPhone, iPad DAWs, digital audio workstations, then you may be aware of audio unit extension plugins, which are free apps that you can download and then use within GarageBand or any other DAW. So in this one, we're going to take a look at something that has been missing for a long time, and that is a good, simple brick wall limiter plugin. So we've got the JAX, which stands for just another extension, but I think once you take a look, you'll realize that this is not just another extension. It is something that you will want in your plugin collection. So let's dive in now and see what this plugin can do. So what is a limiter and why would you want one in your collection? Well, a limiter is a type of compressor, but unlike a regular compressor where you have threshold and ratio and attacks and gains and all sorts of other controls, it's usually much simpler because really what we're trying to do here is to gain as much volume without clipping or distorting our signal. So unlike an actual volume control here, where if you turn it up too loud, you'll start clipping because the peaks of your signal will go up into the red and be too loud, what a limiter does is it turns up the volume, but it actually chops off the tops of those peaks. So it compresses the peak, so you get a louder overall volume without getting that clipping or distortion. Now, there's some things to be careful of, which we'll show you in this video, because you don't want to over compress or over limit. But the beauty of a brick wall limiter like the JAX Make Louder is that it will actually cut it off at 0 dB. So it won't clip, it may pump or bring in some other distortion into your signal, which we'll talk about, but it won't actually clip your signal. Anyway, that's enough talk. You want to hear what it sounds like. Let's jump in and take a look. Now, because a limiter is just a compressor, you can use it on pretty much any instrument you like, on your pianos, your organs, your guitars, your vocals. We're going to trial it here on drums, and then I'm going to show you it on an entire track, because using it as part of the mastering process or the finalization of your track is something that's pretty common as well. But we'll throw it on these drums. So we'll come in here to the plugins option up the top here, go to plugins and EQ. I've already added it here, but we'll just edit and remove it. I'll just show you how we do this again. So we select any of these slots, the green ones, tap on that, and then over here on the right, we tap audio unit extensions. Now, once you've downloaded it, so you do need to go to the App Store and search for this plugin, or there'll be a link down in the description. And now we're just going to tap the JAX Make Louder, and there it is. It's enabled there. So if we tap on the little icon, this will bring up the interface. Now, by default, it is off, so it's a bit of a different sort of interface here. You can actually move around on the screen here, and I've tried this on my other iPhone, and it's the same. So it's a little bit of a weird design, but the main buttons you want are the on-off, which is in the bottom left here. So we're going to leave it off, and the bottom right, you've got a double boost. So we're going to leave the double boost off for now. Now, for whatever reason, it's got the force here up all the way. So we're going to dial this back. So we're just going to pull down on that to dial it all the way back to 0. Whenever I use a new plugin, I always start with it at off and at 0 so that we can actually dial it in gradually and hear the effect. So we'll hit done on that one. So what I'll do now is I'll play back this drum, and then I will bring in the JAX Make Louder plugin, and you'll hear the effect it has on the drums. So hopefully what you heard there is that as we started out, the drums sounded the same, and then we dialed this up and they got a little bit more pop and presence, and you could hear the cymbals came out a little bit, because what it's basically doing is, because it's compressing the peaks and bringing up those quieter sounds, you're getting a more level and even performance. What happens though is as you over compress or you over limit, you start getting a couple of things happen. You start getting that pumping effect, which sounds quite unpleasant, and then you get that sort of reverberant doubling effect as well that comes in here with over limiting. So as we came around too far, it really didn't sound good. So you do need to be careful with something like this. That's why I always say start with it way down low and then just dial it in. But in terms of a free plugin that you can just bring in that's going to give you some extra punch to some of your instruments, I think this is pretty cool. Now let's just try this double up, this 2 times on here, and see what this does. So we'll hit play. Yeah, so you can hear there that it takes even less time for it to start sounding bad. So obviously you would only use this double boost when you really wanted to crush something, and maybe that's the actual effect you're going for. You're making a song where you really want it to sound like a really heavily compressed, crushed sound. So you've got options in there, but as I mentioned, a very simple way to use this here. Now, that is one way, is to use it on an instrument. What is another cooler way is to actually use it on a whole track. So let's load up a track here in GarageBand, a whole song, and we'll take a look at this plugin. Now I'm just going to add in a quick bonus tip here, which is something I've shown before, and that is before I export this song and then bring it back in, bring the WAV file back in to master it in GarageBand, what I actually usually do is add in an FX track, and then in the FX track, when we go into the plugins and EQ here, we can actually go to the visual EQ and we can actually turn up or down the overall volume. And what I normally do, because GarageBand uses auto normalization, is I'll drop the volume down by about 10 dB and then hit done. And then when we actually export this, then it doesn't actually have as high a peak. So it's still going to normalize it to 0 dB, but you're going to get a bit more dynamic range by dropping the overall volume. And there's other videos which will be in the description that will show you how to do this, as well as at the end of this one. So if that didn't make sense to you, don't worry. Just keep in your mind that we want to have a quieter signal so that we can actually limit it and then bring everything back up in the mix to get a nice balanced mix in the end. So what I'll do is I'll export this song and then bring it back in as a WAV file. And to do that, we just simply select here, we tap on this one, we tap the share button here in the bottom left, we share it as a song file, and then we share it as an uncompressed WAV file. We tap the share button in the top right, and it asks us where we would like to share it to. I always select open in here, because then it gives me the option of where I actually want to save it out to, and I'll generally save it into my GarageBand file transfer folder, just so that I can easily access it and bring it back into a new project. So we'll let this export, and then we'll come back and bring it back in and test out this limiter on a whole song. So that's done. We're going to tap save to files. We're going to go on my iPhone. It'll just take a moment to pop up on my iPhone, GarageBand file transfer, hit add, and that has added that in there. So what we can now do is hit create document, which is just going to create a brand new track. We'll just tap the audio recorder just so that we can get to our view here, tap on the track view in the top left, and now, yes, we've got a little 1 next to our loop over in the top right. So we're going to grab the file here, we're going to drag it across to a nice fresh blank track, and there we go. Now you can see here the waveform still doesn't have a whole lot in the way of headroom. It's still a little bit spiky there, but it's nowhere near as bad as it would have been if we hadn't dropped down that volume. So let's just do a little bit of maintenance here. We'll just split off the front here so that we don't have that part. Delete that. I just like it to be a bit neat, and then bring that one back to the start. So let's just play it as it sounds now. So pretty good, yeah, not bad at all. But what we can probably do is test out this limiter. So what we're going to do, we're going to tap on the mixer icon in the top left, hit plugins and EQ, go edit. Let's hit plus on one of these, audio unit extensions, scroll on down and find the JAX make louder. Now before we hit play again, yes, come in here, make sure that we'll turn it on, but then we will actually drag down here all the way. By the way, if you're wondering what this little snowflake is, that's actually the brightness of our app. Yes, we can have it in full dark mode or full light mode. Let's put it in dark mode for a while. All right, so we've got that set up now, and we'll hit done. We'll just make sure it's enabled. Yep, we're all good there. What we can now do is actually dial this up. We can listen back to the track. So let's come to a section here further into the middle of the track and start listening, and then we'll dial this up and see if we can just make this really sort of pop and have a fuller sound using a limiter here.
They're trying to be something more. They're worrying more about what people say than who they can do something for. We're trying to have a society.
So that's about how far I would probably push something like this. I tend to limit on the softer side, a little bit more conservative, but let's just pump it up and just show you what would happen if we did over limit and over compress this.
Here, but they only care about how they appear. What's the matter with people these days? They don't.
So did you hear that pumping sound? You might have heard that before. A compressor is pumping. It's not usually a good thing. Unless you're going for that desired effect, it usually means that you're over compressing, because what it's doing is it's turning it up and down and up and down. So every time it's kicking in, it's trying desperately not to clip the signal, so it keeps pushing it down and you get that pumping sound. So I wouldn't actually do that. I would have it probably somewhere around here. So we'll just play this again.
Don't seem to do what they feel.
So let's turn it off and I'll play it and then I'll turn it back on. You'll just hear the difference here.
They're busy complaining about their dead-end job and missing out on what is real. And we're trying.
So, and once again, you might be thinking, Pete, isn't that just turning the volume up and down? It's not quite turning the volume up and down. It's doing better than that because you know you're not clipping. You've got that brick wall at 0 dB, so you're not going to get distortion unless you really pump it like we did before. And it's just going to give you a different type of compression because it's squashing down those peaks and it's pulling up the quieter parts. So what we'll do now, just to show you the effect that this will have on our waveform here, let's render this out. So we're going to merge this track so that we can actually see the comparison of the pre-mastered and the post-mastered using the limiter here. So what we'll do now is we'll merge this track. We'll tap right here on the microphone icon. We'll tap the merge button. We'll tap merge in the top right corner. If you want to learn more about merge, there's some videos down in the description. And there you go. Look at the waveform that we've got now with that compression or that limiting that we had on there. We've got this waveform, and yes, GarageBand will auto-normalize again, but you can see here we've got this much more level performance here with that limiting that we applied. If we undo, yeah, it's night and day, yeah. So the difference between your pre-mastered and your post-mastered is going to look quite considerably different. And you can master to taste, so you don't have to crush it that much. You could crush it even more. In fact, what if we did crush it even more? Let's just show you probably what not to do here. If we come into the plugin here and we turn it all the way up like this, so we've got that at maximum now. In fact, let's just put the double on as well. Let's just go nuts. Let's just pretend we wanted to completely crush this. And we won't play that back because I don't want to hear what that sounds like. But we'll tap it, we'll go merge, and we'll hit merge in the top right. And we'll let it do its thing. And boom. Yeah, okay. So I'm not going to even play that because you can imagine what that's going to sound like. But that's what I like to call a sausage waveform, which is just completely flat. It's a big fat sausage. And that's not going to be appealing to anyone's ears because it's going to sound horrible. So how cool is that? We have ourselves a free brick wall limiter plugin to use here in GarageBand on our individual tracks, on our entire mixes, and what a flexible way to add that additional volume when you need to just give something a little bit more pop. Use with caution, don't over compress, don't over limit, don't go for the sausage, but when you want to just add a little bit more to your mix to make sure it is competitive with other songs that you may be playing or hearing, then this could be a great option. Thanks for watching. There's 2 more videos about other free plugins linked right down below. You can subscribe by clicking or tapping on the Studio Live Today icon in the top right, and I'll see you on the next one.